They thought I was just a senile old checkbook waiting to expire, someone they could toss into a nursing home once they secured the deed to my estate. But when my daughter-in-law tried to turn my sanctuary into her personal content studio, she learned that this boomer still has claws. If you love stories about sweet revenge and justice served ice cold, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now. You are not going to want to miss a single second of how I took my life back. My name is Eleanor, and at 72, I've seen enough of the world to know when I'm being played. For the past 3 years, I've been living in a nightmare of my own making, right here in the sprawling colonial house in Connecticut that my late husband and I bought 40 years ago. It was supposed to be my golden years, a time for gardening and reading by the fire. Instead, it's become a battlefield. It all started when my son, Jason, came to me with a sob story about getting back on his feet after a bad investment. Being a mother, my heart bled for him. I told him he and his wife, Brittany, could stay in the guest wing for a few months. That was 3 years ago. Brittany. Just saying her name leaves a sour taste in my mouth, like spoiled milk. She's one of those lifestyle influencers on social media, constantly glued to her phone, curating a life that doesn't exist. To her 50,000 followers, most of whom I suspect are bots, she lives in a stunning vintage mansion and enjoys a life of leisure. She conveniently leaves out the part where she doesn't pay a dime for the mortgage, the utilities, or the groceries. In her posts, I'm either invisible or, on the rare occasion she needs sympathy points, I'm her ailing dear Nana who needs so much care. Ailing? I do Pilates 3 times a week and run the local library board. But facts don't matter in Brittany's world, only aesthetics. The tension had been simmering for months, but the pot finally boiled over last Tuesday. I was in the sunroom, enjoying my morning Earl Grey, when Brittany stormed in. She didn't knock, of course. She never does. She was wearing oversized sunglasses indoors and holding a venti latte from that overpriced coffee shop in town. "Eleanor, we have a code red," she announced, her voice shrill and grating. She dropped her designer bag on my antique coffee table without a coaster. "My manager just secured a partnership with Lux Life Vodka. We need to host the launch party here, next Saturday." I set my cup down slowly, fighting the urge to throw it. "Here, Brittany? This is my home, not an event hall, and next Saturday is my book club meeting." She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "Cancel it. This is huge for my brand, Eleanor. We're talking A-list micro-influencers, a DJ, the works. I need the entire ground floor clear. Oh, and the garden needs to be landscaped. Those roses of yours look tired." My roses? My prize-winning roses that I had tended to for 20 decades? "My roses are fine," I said, my voice steady but cold, "and I am not canceling my book club. You can host your party at a venue." "We can't afford a venue," she snapped, forgetting her rich girl persona for a split second. Then she switched tactics. Her face softened into that fake plastic pout she used on Jason. "Look, Eleanor, Jason really needs this to work. If this partnership goes well, we can finally start contributing to the bills. Don't you want Jason to be successful?" That was her ace in the hole, always using my son as a shield. He was so enamored with her, so desperate to keep her happy, that he turned a blind eye to how she treated me. "Fine," I sighed, already regretting it, "but no loud music after 10 p.m. and nobody goes upstairs." "Deal," she squealed, clapping her hands. "Oh, and one more tiny thing. Since we're blowing the budget on the booze and the DJ, could you handle the catering? Nothing fancy, just apps for like 80 people. You make those cute little crab cakes, right? It would save us a ton." I stared at her. She wanted me to cater her party, in my home, where I wasn't even really invited, just tolerated as the help. "I am not your caterer, Brittany." "Please, for Jason?" She batted her eyelashes. "Besides, what else do you have to do? It'll keep you busy." I felt a vein throb in my temple. Keep me busy, as if I were a toddler needing distraction. I was about to refuse, to tell her to take her vodka and her influencers and shove them, when Jason walked in. He looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a wrinkled suit. "Mom, please," he muttered, not even meeting my eyes. "I just want to... just this once. It would really help us out. I don't want to argue about money again." I looked at my son, defeated and pathetic in his own kitchen. Then I looked at Brittany, smirking triumphantly behind his back. Something inside me clicked. It was a sharp, distinct snap, like a dry twig breaking in winter. "Okay," I said, a smile spreading across my face that didn't reach my eyes. "I'll do it. I'll make it a party everyone will remember." Brittany clapped again. "Perfect. Just try to stay in the kitchen during the event, okay? It's kind of a young vibe, and we don't want to kill the mood." "Understood. I'll be invisible." As she pranced away to start online shopping for a new outfit, and Jason shuffled off to the den, I stayed in the sunroom. They thought they had won. They thought I was just the pushover old lady who would fund their delusions of grandeur until I kicked the bucket. But they didn't know I had overheard Brittany on the phone earlier that morning talking to her real estate friend about staging the house once they got power of attorney. They were planning to declare me incompetent. Well, two can play at that game. I picked up my phone, but not to call a caterer. I dialed my lawyer. It was time to rewrite the script. The party was happening all right, and it was going to be the perfect stage for my performance. The next 72 hours were a masterclass in patience. My once peaceful home was transformed into a chaotic construction zone for Brittany's ego. A team of creatives, hipster kids who looked like they hadn't showered in a week, were hauling lighting rigs and sound equipment through my foyer, scuffing the hardwood floors I had polished by hand for decades. "Watch the wainscoting," I warned a lanky guy dragging a speaker. "Chill, lady, it's just wood," he muttered, not even looking at me. I retreated to the kitchen, my designated prison. Brittany was in there, filming a story for her Instagram. She had rearranged my spice rack by color instead of usage, which drove me absolutely bonkers, just so it would look aesthetic in the background. "Hey guys," she chirped into her phone, her voice pitching up 2 octaves. "So, prep day for the Lux Life launch is totally insane. We are working so hard to make this vibe perfect. My mother-in-law is helping out with some snacks, bless her heart. She's trying her best." She panned the camera to me. I forced a tight, confused smile, playing the part of the doddering old woman perfectly. As soon as the camera cut, her smile dropped like a stone. "Eleanor, that smile was creepy. Try to look less rigid next time. And make sure the crab cakes aren't greasy. Grease is not on brand." "I'll do my best, dear," I said, suppressing the urge to dump a bowl of batter over her perfectly highlighted hair. "I'm going to run to the market for fresh dill. The dried stuff won't do." "Whatever, just be back in an hour. The florist is coming and I need you to sign for the delivery because I have a facial appointment." I grabbed my keys and walked out, but I didn't go to the market. I drove straight to downtown, parking my modest sedan in front of a brick building on Main Street. I had an appointment with Samuel, my estate attorney and a friend of 40 years. When I sat down in his leather chair, Samuel looked grim. He slid a manila envelope across the mahogany desk. "You were right, Elle," he said, his voice grave. "I pulled the court filings this morning. They haven't served you the papers yet, probably waiting until after this party of theirs, but they've filed a petition for emergency guardianship. They're claiming you're suffering from advanced dementia and are a danger to yourself and your finances." I opened the folder. There it was in black and white. My son, the boy I had nursed through fevers and paid through college, was claiming I was senile so he could take control of my assets. There were even affidavits from a doctor I'd never met. "They want to sell the house, Samuel," I said, my hand trembling slightly, not from fear, but from pure, cold rage. They want to liquidate everything and put me in a facility. It's a standard move for greedy relatives, Samuel sighed as he took off his glasses. We can fight this, obviously. You're sharp as a tack, but it will be ugly. A court battle with your own son? No, I cut him off, closing the folder with a snap. We aren't going to court. Not yet. I have a better idea. I need you to draw up some papers for me, Samuel, and I need them ready by Saturday night. I explained my plan. Samuel's eyebrows shot up, and then, slowly, a wicked grin spread across his face. Eleanor, that is ruthless. I love it. I drove back to the house with a lighter heart. The dill was just an excuse, but the plan I had brewing was the main course. When I got home, the house was buzzing. Jason was in the living room trying on a tuxedo that looked brand new. "Mom," he said, adjusting his cufflinks, "does this look okay? Brittany says I need to look like a mogul." "It looks expensive, Jason," I noted, eyeing the designer label. "Where did the money come from?" He shifted uncomfortably. "It's an investment, Mom. You have to spend money to make money. Once this partnership takes off, I'll pay you back for everything." "I'm sure you will," I said softly. "By the way, I need the guest list for the catering count, and Brittany mentioned a VIP coming, someone from the vodka company." "Yeah, the CEO of Lux Life, Marcus Sterling. He's a huge deal. If we impress him, he might offer me a consulting gig. That's why everything has to be perfect. Please don't embarrass us, Mom. Just stick to the kitchen." "I wouldn't dream of ruining your big night," I lied. That night, I stayed up late in the kitchen prepping hundreds of crab cakes. But I also did something else. While Jason and Brittany were asleep, dreaming of their unearned riches, I crept into the home office, formerly my husband's study. I knew Jason kept his laptop password on a sticky note under the keyboard because he was lazy like that. I logged in and found exactly what I was looking for. Emails between Brittany and her manager mocking me, messages to real estate agents about listing the house as a teardown to build a modern glass monstrosity, and most damning of all, credit card statements in my name that I'd never opened. They had maxed out 3 cards totaling 40 grand on business expenses, which looked suspiciously like spa days, designer clothes, and that tuxedo. I forwarded everything to a secure cloud account. I wasn't just going to kick them out. I was going to destroy their reputation and their future. The next morning was the day of the party. The atmosphere was electric with tension. Brittany was barking orders at the florists, screaming that the hydrangeas were the wrong shade of periwinkle. "Eleanor," she yelled from the foyer, "why are you just standing there? The cater waiters will be here at 5. You need to have the platters ready. And for God's sakes, change into something that doesn't smell like old people." I looked down at my apron. "I'm wearing my cooking clothes, Brittany. I have a nice dress for tonight." "Just stay out of the photos," she hissed, turning back to the terrified florist. I went back to the kitchen, humming a little tune. She thought she was the queen of the castle, ordering the servants around. She had no idea that the guillotine was already sharpened, and she was the one who had placed her neck right on the block. The party was going to be spectacular indeed, just not in the way she thought. I reached for my phone and sent one final text to Samuel. "It's a go. Bring the papers tonight." By 8 p.m., my living room didn't look like a home anymore. It looked like a nightclub that had vomited glitter and desperation. The bass from the DJ booth was so heavy it rattled the crystal in my china cabinet, each thump feeling like a physical blow to the history of this house. The air was thick with the cloying scent of expensive perfume and that peculiar metallic smell of fog machines. I stood by the kitchen swinging door, smoothing the front of the simple black dress I had changed into. It was elegant but understated, the kind of thing a high-end housekeeper might wear. That was exactly the vibe I was going for. Brittany had made it clear I was staff tonight. "Can we get more of those crab cakes?" A girl with neon pink hair snapped at me, not even looking up from her phone as she live-streamed herself dancing. "And bring some napkins. I spilled a drink on the rug." My Persian rug, the one my husband and I bought in Istanbul in 1995. I walked over and saw a dark stain spreading on the wool. I didn't say a word, I just blotted it with a cloth, my face a mask of calm, while inside, the fire was raging hot enough to burn this whole charade down. Brittany was in her element, or at least she was acting like it. She was wearing a silver sequined dress that cost more than my first car, flitting from group to group, laughing that high-pitched fake laugh of hers. She was clinging to the arm of a tall, silver-haired man in a bespoke suit, Marcus Sterling, the CEO. I grabbed a fresh tray of appetizers and waded into the crowd. I needed to be close. I needed to hear what lies she was spinning. "Oh, Marcus, we just love this space," I heard Brittany cooing as I approached. "Jason and I have put so much work into the renovations. We're thinking of knocking down that wall to open up the flow for our summer parties." "It's a magnificent property," Marcus replied, looking around with a critical eye. "Hard to find colonial builds with this much original character these days. You own it outright?" "Oh, absolutely," Jason chimed in, appearing at Brittany's elbow with a nervous grin. He was sweating through his tuxedo. "Been in the family for years, but we took over the deed recently to manage the assets. My mother lives in the guest wing, she needs the assistance." The audacity took my breath away. Took over the deed, guest wing. I was standing 3 feet away holding a tray of crab cakes, and they were erasing my existence in real time. I stepped forward, thrusting the tray between them. "Hors d'oeuvres, Mr. Sterling?" Brittany's head snapped toward me, her eyes widening in panic. She practically shoved me back with a glare. "Not now, Eleanor. Go check on the bar." Marcus looked at me, really looked at me for a second. "Thank you," he said, taking a napkin. "These are excellent. Did you make them?" "I did," I said, locking eyes with him. "Using my own recipe, I find homemade is always better than store-bought imitations." Brittany let out a nervous titter. "Oh, she's such a character. Eleanor, seriously, the bar needs ice." I gave a small nod and retreated, but I had made my point. I wasn't a ghost. I made my way to the back of the room where the shadows were deeper. That's when I saw him. Samuel was standing near the French doors, dressed in a sharp black suit, looking every bit the distinguished guest. He wasn't on the list, but he walked right past security with the confidence of a man who knows the law better than anyone in the room. He caught my eye and tapped the breast pocket of his jacket. The papers, the evidence, it was all there. The music suddenly cut out, replaced by a feedback whine that made everyone wince. The DJ grabbed the mic. "Yo, yo, everyone give it up for our hosts, the future of Lux Life, Brittany and Jason." A smattering of applause broke out, mostly from people who were hoping for free merch. Brittany shrieked with delight and grabbed the microphone, dragging Jason to the center of the room. She stood on my coffee table, shoes and all, to address the crowd. "Thank you all so much for coming," she yelled, her voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. "This night is a dream come true. When Jason and I decided to turn our home into a hub for creativity and luxury, we knew it was a risk. But looking at all of you beautiful people here, I know we made the right choice. Our home," she said again, possessive, final. "We have big plans for this place," she continued, intoxicated by the attention. "We're going to modernize, innovate, and really bring this old estate into the 21st century. And with the partnership with Lux Life, we're just getting started." The crowd cheered. Jason beamed, looking like the king of the world. They thought they had pulled it off. They thought the old lady in the kitchen was defeated, confused, and powerless. I looked at Samuel. He gave me a single grim nod. It was time. I set the silver tray down on a side table with a heavy clatter. I didn't walk toward the kitchen, I walked toward the center of the room. I moved with a purpose that parted the sea of influencers and hangers-on. My posture was straight, my head held high. The frail old woman act was gone. Brittany was just raising her glass for a toast. So here's to the future, to Luck's life, and to us. And to the truth, I said. My voice wasn't shouted, but it projected clearly in the sudden lull before the toast. It was the voice I used when I chaired the library board, the voice I used to discipline Jason when he was a child. It cut through the room like a knife. Brittany froze, her glass halfway to her mouth. She looked down from me on her perch on the table, her face twisting in confusion and annoyance. "Eleanor, what are you doing? Go back to the—" "Get off my table, Brittany," I said, my voice dropping an octave, cold as liquid nitrogen, "and give me that microphone." The room went deadly silent. A few people pulled out their phones, sensing drama. "Security!" Brittany shrieked, her voice cracking. "Get her out of here! She's having an episode!" "Well, I wouldn't do that if I were you," Samuel's voice boomed from the back of the room. He stepped forward, holding a thick stack of legal documents. "We have the files, Jason. We have everything." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. The party was over. The real show was just beginning. The silence in the room was heavier than the humid Connecticut air outside. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator in the distance and the soft whir of the air conditioning. Then, chaos erupted. But it wasn't the kind Brittany wanted. It was the digital kind. Every single phone in the room went up. The creatives, the influencers, the hangers-on, they smelled blood in the water. They weren't here for Lux Life vodka anymore. They were here for the tea, and they were live streaming every second of Brittany's downfall. "She's lying!" Brittany screamed, scrambling down from the coffee table, her heel catching on the edge and sending her stumbling. She caught herself on Jason's arm, her fingernails digging into his tuxedo jacket. "Jason, tell them! Tell them she has dementia! She doesn't know what she's saying!" Jason looked like he was about to vomit. His eyes darted between me, the crowd, and Samuel, who was calmly walking toward us like the Grim Reaper in a three-piece suit. I, Jason stammered, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Save your breath, Jason," I said, my voice steady. I didn't need a microphone anymore. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "Samuel, please show Mr. Sterling the deed to this house." Samuel handed a crisp, blue-backed document to Marcus Sterling. The CEO took it, adjusted his glasses, and scanned the paper. Brittany held her breath, her chest heaving. "It says here," Marcus began, his voice deep and authoritative, "that the sole owner of this property is Eleanor Vance. There are no co-owners, no liens." He looked up, his expression unreadable. "And the mortgage was paid off in 2005. "That's a mistake!" Brittany shrieked, her face flushing a deep, blotchy red. "We're in the process of transferring it. It's practically ours." "Practically yours?" I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Just like the $40,000 you stole from my retirement accounts was practically yours? Or the credit cards you opened in my name to buy this circus?" I gestured to the room, to the rented furniture and the ridiculous ice sculpture melting in the corner. "That's slander! I'll sue you!" "You can't sue with money you don't have, Brittany," Samuel interjected smoothly. He held up another stack of papers. "The IP addresses from the online applications match the router in this house. The signatures are forged. And we have footage from the ATM cameras of Jason withdrawing cash using Eleanor's card." The crowd gasped. I saw a famous local food blogger turn her camera toward Jason, zooming in on his terrified face. This was going live to thousands of people. Brittany's perfect life wasn't just cracking, it was shattering into a million jagged pieces. Marcus Sterling handed the deed back to Samuel and turned to Brittany. The warmth was completely gone from his eyes.
He looked at her like she was a stain on his shoe. "Mrs. Vance," Marcus said to her, his voice cold, "Lux Life prides itself on authenticity and integrity. We do not partner with frauds." "No, wait, Marcus, please." Brittany grabbed his arm, but he shook her off with a look of disgust. "The partnership is canceled, effective immediately," Marcus announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "And I will be speaking to my legal team about the misrepresentation of assets. Do not contact my office again." He turned to me, gave a respectful nod, and walked out the front door without looking back. That was the nail in the coffin. The party dissolved instantly. It was like rats fleeing a sinking ship. The DJ cut the power, packing his gear in record time. The influencers, realizing the free ride was over and the vibe was officially toxic, scurried toward the exits, whispering and typing furiously on their phones. "This is going to be all over TikTok by morning," I heard a girl say as she grabbed 2 gift bags and bolted. Within 10 minutes, the house was empty. The silence that returned wasn't peaceful. It was heavy with judgment. The floor was sticky with spilled drinks, my rug was ruined, and the air smelled of stale ambition. Only 3 people remained: Jason, Brittany, and me. Samuel stood by the door, a silent sentinel ensuring they didn't try to run. Brittany stood in the center of the ruin, her mascara running down her cheeks, her sequined dress looking cheap under the harsh overhead lights I had just flipped on. She looked at the door where Marcus had exited, to her phone which was blowing up with notifications, and finally to me. Her face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. "You ruined everything!" she screamed, lunging toward me. "You jealous, bitter old hag! You ruined my life!" Jason grabbed her waist, holding her back, but he didn't look angry at her. He looked terrified of me. "Brittany, stop! Stop it!" "I didn't ruin your life, Brittany," I said, not flinching an inch. "I just turned on the lights. You're the one who built a life out of lies." I walked over to the sofa, one of the few pieces of furniture they hadn't moved, and sat down, crossing my legs. I felt exhausted, but also incredibly powerful. "Now," I said, pointing to the 2 chairs opposite me, "sit down, both of you." "We don't have to listen to you," Brittany spat, though she stopped struggling against Jason. "You really do," Samuel said from the doorway, "because right now Eleanor has a decision to make. She can either call the police and have you both arrested for elder abuse, identity theft, and credit card fraud, or we can discuss terms." Jason's knees gave out. He practically fell into the chair, burying his face in his hands. "Mom, please, not the police. I can't go to jail." Brittany looked at her husband with disdain, then back at me. She straightened her spine, trying to regain some shred of dignity. "Fine. What do you want? An apology? I'm sorry, okay? There. Happy?" I looked at her, really looked at her. She still didn't get it. She thought this was a game. She thought she could pout and apologize, and everything would go back to normal. "I don't want your apology, Brittany. It's worthless," I said softly. "I want my house back, and I want my money back. But most of all, I want you to feel a fraction of the helplessness you tried to force on me." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a list I'd written the night before. "Here is what is going to happen, and if you interrupt me even once, Samuel calls the detective who is currently on standby." Jason looked up, tears streaming down his face. "Anything, Mom, anything." "We'll see," I said, "because the price of your freedom is going to be very, very high."
Item number 1. I read aloud, my voice echoing slightly in the hollow silence of the room. "You will both sign a confession admitting to identity theft, credit card fraud, and elder abuse. Samuel has the document ready for your signatures right now." Brittany shot up in her chair as if she'd been electrocuted. "I am not signing that. That's admitting guilt. If we sign that, you can send us to jail whenever you want." "Exactly,"
I said, offering her a cold, razor-thin smile. That is the point, Brittany. It's my insurance policy. As long as you pay me back every single cent you stole and stay out of my life, the document stays in Samuel's safe. But the moment you miss a payment, or the moment I see my name mentioned on your social media again, I hand it to the district attorney. Jason looked at the thick document Samuel had placed on the coffee table. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen. And if we sign it, you won't call the police tonight? If you sign it, you get to walk out of here, I confirmed. If you don't, the officers waiting down the street get a call. Brittany slapped Jason's hand away as he reached for the pen. Don't be an idiot, Jason. She's bluffing. She wouldn't send her own son to prison. I leaned forward, looking deep into my son's eyes. I searched for the little boy I used to take to baseball practice, the young man I watched graduate. But all I saw was a weak, greedy stranger who had let his wife treat me like garbage for 3 years. Try me, I whispered. Test me, Brittany. See how much maternal instinct I have left after you two drained my bank accounts and planned to throw me in a state-run nursing home. Jason saw the truth in my eyes. He knew. He grabbed the pen, ignoring his wife's screeching protest, and scribbled his name. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. Your turn, Brittany, Samuel said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Brittany looked around the room like a trapped animal, but she had no moves left. With a sob of pure frustration, she snatched the pen and aggressively signed the paper, tearing through the page slightly. There, happy? Now we're leaving. She stood up and started walking toward the stairs. I'm going to pack my bags. We'll go to a hotel. Sit down, I barked. Brittany froze, one foot on the bottom step. What now? We signed your stupid paper. Item number 2, I read aloud, my voice glancing at my list. Repayment. You owe me $43,000 plus legal fees. And since I know you don't have that in cash, we are going to liquidate your assets. My assets? Brittany laughed nervously. I don't have assets. You have a closet full of designer bags, shoes, and clothes bought with my money. You have a leased Audi that is under Jason's name but paid for by my credit card. And you have a literal room full of camera equipment. No, Brittany whispered, clutching her chest. Those are my tools. That's my career. You can't take my Birkin. I can and I will, I said. Samuel has a team coming tomorrow morning to appraise and seize everything of value in the guest wing. You will leave with 1 suitcase of essential clothing each. Everything else stays here to be sold to repay your debt. This is illegal, Brittany shrieked, looking at Jason for support, but he was staring at the floor, defeated. Actually, it's part of the settlement agreement you just signed. Clause 4, Section B, voluntary liquidation of personal property to cover restitution. Brittany slumped against the banister, looking like her world had ended. But I wasn't finished. I had one final humiliation for her, the one that really mattered. And finally, item number 3, I said, folding the paper and placing it in my lap. You are evicted, effective tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. But before you leave, there is the matter of the mess. I gestured around the room, the spilled drinks, the crushed appetizers stamped into the carpet, the confetti, the trash left by her guests. I am not a maid, I said, throwing her own words back at her from months ago, and I'm certainly not cleaning up after your failed launch party. Brittany's eyes went wide. You want us to clean? No, I corrected her. I want you to clean, Brittany. Jason can help move the heavy furniture back into place, but you are going to scrub the floors. You are going to spot clean the rug, and you are going to wash every single glass in the kitchen. I'm wearing a $2,000 dress, she cried. Then I suggest you don't get it wet, I replied coolly. The cleaning supplies are under the sink, the same place they've been for the last 3 years while you watched me scrub around your feet. I won't do it, she spat, crossing her arms. Then I call the police, I said, reaching for my phone, and you can spend the night in a holding cell. I hear the accommodations are very minimalist. She stared at me, hatred radiating off her in waves, but she knew she was beaten. Slowly, painfully, she walked to the kitchen. A moment later, I heard the cabinet door open, I heard the clatter of a bucket and the snap of rubber gloves. I sat there for the next 4 hours, sipping a fresh cup of tea that Jason made for me in silence. I watched as the queen of aesthetics got on her hands and knees and scrubbed my hardwood floors. I watched her sweat ruin her makeup. I watched her break a manicured nail on a stubborn stain. She didn't look like an influencer anymore. She looked like a spoiled child learning a very hard, very necessary lesson. By 4 a.m., the house was spotless. Brittany was slumped on the sofa, exhausted, her dress stained with soapy water, her hair a mess. "Are we done?" she asked, her voice raspy. "As much so," I said, standing up. "Go pack your single suitcase. You leave in 4 hours, and believe me, I'll be checking the bags to make sure you're not smuggling out any of my silver." They trudged up the stairs like ghosts. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my favorite armchair, listening to the silence of my house returning to me. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a fortress I had successfully defended. But the final act was yet to come. I had to ensure they never, ever came back. And for that, I had one last surprise waiting for them in the driveway. The morning sun hit the driveway at exactly 8 a.m., illuminating the final stage of my operation. Inside the house, the mood was funereal. Jason and Brittany came tramping down the stairs, dragging one suitcase each. They looked like refugees from a failed reality show. Brittany was wearing oversized sunglasses to hide her puffy eyes, and Jason looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "We're leaving," Jason mumbled, refusing to make eye contact. "Are you happy now?" "Happiness has nothing to do with it, Jason," I replied, standing by the front door with my arms crossed. "This is about consequences. But before you step out that door, put the bags on the table. Open them." "Are you serious?" Brittany snapped, her voice cracking. "We only took clothes. You watched us pack." "I watched you pack the main items," I corrected her. "But I know you, Brittany. You have sticky fingers. Open the bags." Reluctantly, Jason unzipped his suitcase. It was just clothes. But when Brittany unzipped hers, I saw a suspicious lump wrapped in a silk scarf tucked inside a pair of boots. I reached in and pulled it out. It was my mother's pearl necklace. I just borrowed it for a shoot once and forgot to put it back," she stammered, her face turning crimson. "Theft," I said simply, pocketing the pearls. "Strike one. If I find anything else, I call the detective. He's on speed dial." I did a quick pat down of the rest of the bag. Satisfied that she hadn't smuggled out the silverware, I zipped it back up. "Get out." We walked out onto the front porch. The morning air was crisp, the birds were singing, and in the driveway, a massive tow truck was backing up toward the gleaming black Audi Q7. A burly man in a neon vest was already hooking the chains to the bumper. "Hey, hey!" Jason yelled, dropping his suitcase and running down the steps. "What are you doing? That's my car." "Actually," I called out from the porch, enjoying the view, "it's the dealership's car. You see, Jason, when I canceled the credit card that was auto-paying the lease this morning, I also gave them a call. I told them the vehicle was no longer secured and that the primary driver was financially unstable." You canceled the lease?" Brittany screamed, running after Jason. "How are we supposed to leave? We have reservations at a motel across town." "I believe the bus stops at the corner of Elm and Main. It's a lovely day for a walk. Think of it as cardio. Isn't that on brand for you?" The tow truck driver didn't care about their drama. He lifted the Audi into the air, the suspension creaking as the tires left the pavement. Brittany watched in horror as her status symbol, the car she posed in front of for every other TikTok, was hauled away like a piece of junk. "This is insane," she wailed, turning to face me. "You can't leave us stranded. We have luggage." "That's not my problem," echoing the words she had said to me so many times when I asked for help around the house. "You're resourceful. Figure it out." I turned to go back inside, but I had one last bit of news to deliver, the cherry on top of this delicious sundae of revenge. "Oh, and Brittany," I called out. She froze, glaring at me. "I checked my iPad this morning. It seems your little live stream last night went viral, but not in the way you wanted." Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" "The hashtag LuxLifeFraud is trending locally, and that video of you screaming at me while I clean the rug, someone recorded that too. The comments are very enlightening. It seems your followers don't appreciate people who abuse the elderly. You've lost about 20,000 followers since midnight." She scrambled for her phone, her hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped it. I heard a guttural scream of rage as she saw the notifications. Her brand was radioactive. She wasn't just broke, she was canceled. "I hate you," she screamed, the sound raw and ugly. "Goodbye, Brittany. Goodbye, Jason," I said calmly. "Don't come back. The locks are being changed at noon." I stepped inside and closed the heavy oak door. I didn't slam it, I just clicked it shut, turning the deadbolt with a satisfying thud. I walked into the living room. It was empty, quiet, and finally mine again. The sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting the clean floors. I went to the kitchen and put the kettle on. As the water boiled, I looked out the window. I saw two small figures dragging their suitcases down the long driveway, bickering with each other, walking toward the bus stop. I poured myself a cup of Earl Grey, took a sip, and let out a long, deep breath. The nightmare was over. They thought I was a helpless old woman they could exploit and discard. They forgot that I was the matriarch of this family, and I survived far worse things than a narcissistic influencer and a spineless son. I took my phone out and opened the contact for my lawyer, Samuel. I sent a simple text. "It's done. The house is clean." Then I sat in my sunroom, surrounded by my plants, and for the first time in 3 years, I enjoyed the silence. It didn't feel empty, it felt like victory.